Good evening and welcome to Burlington and Beyond. This is our 45th show. My name is Joan Kennedy Constant. I'm going to be your moderator this evening. And with me are several new guests. Thank you for joining us. This is Christine Brown. And also to my right is Jonathan Sachs. And with me is Adam Sensi. Sensi? Sinesi. And Pat Marino. I wanted to thank our viewers out there. We were very fortunate. Recently, the Burlington Cable Access Television show had their awards ceremony, and we actually got a few awards. We got one award for Viewer's Choice, which is right here. Wanted to thank everyone for finding us, voting us their Viewer's Choice, and we also won one for directing, which was Marianne Gerard for directing the Burlington and Beyond show.
And your award.
Yes, I got an award for being an enthusiastic volunteer because most times I work behind the camera, which is all for the better of the show, I'd say.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And so we're going to have probably a very interesting and spirited hour talking with Christine and John about the master plan for the town. And
an idea that sprang out of the master plan steering committee, which is this sculpture park project. But why don't we start explaining a little bit about what the master plan steering committee is?
What the master plan steering committee is, it was enacted by the planning board. So it's a look to see where the town is going to go for the next 10 years. The steering committee looks at different things. Housing is an aspect, cultural resources, recreation, open space, transportation. So everything that Burlington is looking to do in the future and sort of set a blueprint for the town, that's what we've been looking at for the past almost year and a half. And we'll probably get another half year ahead of us. So we meet regularly, probably twice a month. They have community meetings, and we just...
Which reminds me, that community meeting is coming up that people might want to know about. Housing is one of the really critical issues that helps determine what the future of a town is going to be like, and there's going to be a housing...
There's a community meeting for housing on June 15th, and that's probably going to be held at Grandview Farms, and the information will be on the public, the planning board aspect of the town website, so burlington.org, link to planning board, and that gives you updates on all the meetings.
And all of your meetings are open to the public, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, they try to get, for the big topics, sort of like a kickoff, they try to get the whole community in one spot, because we meet down in the town hall annex usually. So we try to get larger groups in Grandview, or so they can house it and just really drum up community interest and get a lot of input.
Yes.
You're with Recreation.
Yep, I'm on the Recreation.
Jonathan,
Commission.
you are also part of that with Recreation?
Nope, I'm a town meeting member. I happen to be a neighbor of Jack Kelly, who's been active in Burlington for many years. I'm very new in town. I've been here for 6 or 7 years, and Jack encouraged me to get involved in the town and run for town meeting. And then the planning board nominates 2 people to be on the master plan steering committee, and so the planning board, I'm one of the 2 representatives of just town meeting in general on the master plan steering committee. The master plan steering committee is really an interesting group because it's the only place that I've seen in Burlington where people from all walks of life, from different branches of the government, the selectmen, town meeting members, recreation, the
Council on Aging.
Council on Aging, and the business community. People who sometimes are at odds about issues, particularly about development issues. But you get everybody around a table, and those meetings have been very constructive, extremely civil, and alliances have been formed that nobody could have predicted. People that have argued bitterly in the past about this issue, put that aside and say, yes, we both really agree about that. And I think that's where progress is really made. So it's been a great thing. It really is good for the town, I think.
What have you done for a life's experience? What did you do? What do you do? What is part of what you do?
I am actually a self-employed graphic designer. I build websites for a lot of small businesses and nonprofits. I do lots of photography. I do videography and other forms of graphics. So actually, when the sculpture park idea came up, it was relatively easy for me to spend a weekend or an evening, I can't remember now, putting together this booklet to explain the concept without having to go through a committee and hire a designer. I could just sit down and do it. The other thing I'm very active in Burlington with is the Friends of Mary Cummings Park, which is one of the two remaining significant open spaces.
Right.
And I spend a lot of weekends, Mary Cummings Park is not a well-known place. It's one of the oddities that this 214-acre reserve is kind of a secret, an open secret. And we have spent a great deal of time clearing trails and putting up trail signs. And that's what I spend a lot of my weekend time doing. And once a month we have a guided walk with a nature specialist. In fact, the next one coming up, it's the first Saturday of every month. So on the first Saturday in June 4th, I think, I'll be leading it because one of my other little side projects in life is I happen to be, I run the country's most popular website about poison ivy. I spend a lot of summer evenings at home answering people's emails about, is this poison ivy? No, that's Virginia creeper. And no, the rash doesn't spread that way. It's hard to explain how I got into this, but I'm stuck with it now.
It's a valuable
You
community
know
service.
Paul well then.
What's that?
You know Paul, our producer, very well.
Oh, very well, yes.
Yeah.
We have spent, yes, and he has helped clearing some of the trails. Paul rented a big mower for me because a lot of those trails got very badly overgrown. By the way, that's another topic for another show. Mary Cummings Park, after being the perils of Pauline for years, we believe is finally landing on safe ground and hopefully will be under the watchful eye of the trustees of reservations going forward. But in the past, that's where a lot of my time has been spent at Mary Cummings Park. But in the future, I have a feeling that I'm going to be spending a lot more time on this sculpture park idea.
It'll be good. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the sculpture park and your idea.
Can we hear something about Christine?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Everybody just knows me
I'm
now.
a newcomer in town. She's got deep roots here.
I'm a little bit. I wasn't born and raised here, but my husband and I, we've probably been in town with our family almost 18 years now. So I've been on Burlington Recreation. I just got elected to my 5th term.
Oh.
So my profession is in sports medicine. I'm a certified athletic trainer. I work at a college down in Wellesley. So that's how I got interested in the recreation, because my plan was to stay at home with the kids as they were growing. And then I was like, well, I got to sort of keep up my resume and do stuff. So then I ended up going back to work, and then I got on recreation, and I've loved it ever since. So, I mean, I got named to the Master Plan Steering Committee as sort of like a subcommittee because they needed an appointment. So, I mean, it's just really been interesting to work with all the different people that John mentioned. Not usually people that I work with, because we're more, the recreation stuff, but just to see how the planning is going forward, how the housing, and you learn a lot of history about the town as well. So, I mean, I think it's been a valuable experience, and, we've probably got at least 6 more months ahead of us. And, it's been nice to try to help shape the vision of what you think Burlington should be, not just for yourself, but for families and people you talk to, like neighbors, just people you run across in town. So, I mean, I think it's good, and I think we've done a good job. And, meeting John, I never thought I'd be involved maybe in trying to get a sculpture park. My visions are a little bit different than John's, but I never thought I'd be involved in something like that. But I think it's a lasting thing that's of value to the community. So, I'm pretty excited about it, and I know John is, so. Try to get everybody else on board.
We're glad both of you were there, and we're excited too, and that's why we wanted you to come and
thank
tell
you for
us.
having us on.
I'm sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to.
No, we'll jump right into it. Christine, pick one. Either one of you. Tell us about the idea.
Well, one of the things that comes up periodically in the Master Plan Steering Committee is a curiosity of Burlington is that the way it grew up was a farming town. In fact, I remember talking to the Selectman Morandi's father, who has been here for a long time, and he said, when he was a kid, if you were from Burlington, you were a farmer. And in a very, very short time, we went from all farms to no farms, with the possible exception of the 2 fields that Mary Cummings Park, where I personally would love to see some goats up there eating up that poison ivy. But anyway,
Okay.
Burlington does not have a town center the way Wakefield has a beautiful open road with Main Street with two-story brick buildings from the 1890s, Winchester and Lexington. Pretty much every town's got it. We don't have it. Didn't happen that way. And therefore, it puts us in a sort of a funny position. We have, in the center of town, we have our beautiful common, and across the street we have Simon's Park, and nobody would want to touch those or change those in any significant way. They're pleasant, but when you could drive right by and say, well, that's nice, but it doesn't give you a place to hang your hat. One of the problems that we see is that if you don't live in Burlington, you say, Burlington, oh, that's the mall. It's known as the town with the mall. You can see it from the highway. It's the Burlington Mall. And I think for people living in town, people kind of live with that. It's not a terrible thing, but it's also not a wonderful thing because it sort of changes the town to think that we're nothing but a mall and office parks. We have office parks, we have a mall. And Leahy. There's a lot more to town. So this idea kind of sprang up, well, couldn't we make a statement by having somewhere, and it's not well defined yet, nothing about this project has been defined other than there's an idea here. That's really all we've got, is that somewhere in the center of town, maybe all throughout the town, don't even know, there could be a sculpture park. And then when you drive through, instead of going, well, that's pleasant, you'd go, isn't that amazing? Isn't that wonderful? These sculptures would change periodically. Every time a new one was installed, it would be a public event. And so it would, I think, potentially really change everybody's view of what this town is about. And when I suggested this idea originally, I wondered if everybody on this committee thought I was nuts. And then Christine came forward and said, I think it's a good idea. Now, her department, the recreation, controls all this space. So then I thought, well, maybe I'm not nuts and I have an ally and somebody who actually has something to say about it. So then we got a couple other people from the steering committee and we had a few meetings. Nothing is official. It's just an idea.
All right.
And this is something I've only talked in passing, nothing official with recreation, because obviously they maintain all the public buildings in town, the parks, playgrounds, that kind of thing. But they're definitely open to it. The department wants to be involved if we, continue to go forward with it. But we needed a starting point. So, John and I have kept talking and, just trying to get some ideas and bring that forward. So we're trying to drum up community support, make sure residents are on board, and, see what comes out of it. And
So you've done that through the master plan.
Well, so far we've talked about it at master plan, but really haven't really launched it out to the public. In fact, really, this show right here is really our first public airing of what we're thinking about.
Wonderful.
Which is a perfect example of what local access cable, I think, should be doing. We're talking about having 3 meetings over the summer. We had a big deal town meeting that we just got through, and leading up to that was really not the time to start presenting new projects in town. But that's over, and contentious issues have been resolved, and the budget's all settled. And now it seems a reasonable thing to have three open meetings to present these ideas and get feedback. And we think we're going to go ahead and do that, and it'll be publicized in the local papers and maybe flyers in their various supermarkets around town. Try to do it 3 different months, 3 different days, so if you're on vacation for one, you might make another. And then perhaps in September we could go to town meeting and start to formalize it a little bit more once we hear what people really think about it.
That sounds exciting. And I'm on town meeting, so I look forward to hearing more about it.
We're all
Yeah,
on
actually-
town
actually,
meeting.
we're all on
Yeah,
town
all
meeting.
of
Yeah.
This one, but-
Yeah, I have some visuals that I prepared that might
Okay.
help. Maybe we could run through those.
Okay, fair enough.
there's what they are is a 6-slide version of this little book. So this is really the idea. What if we had a sculpture park in Burlington? So you see there, you see the town common. Now, by the way, I got that image from Google Street View. And so it wasn't the best day. The grass is a little dead, but that's kind of what it looks like. It's lovely. And I guess what I'm thinking is on the bottom, you see 3 examples of modern sculpture. You see a bronze of a guy sitting on a bench. You see sculptures where kids are playing. You see bright colored red, orange, and blue sculptures. And so I sort of set them in there to sort of get people thinking about what would it be if those sculptures, or sculptures like that, were somehow in the center of our town. I think that it would really start to change people's feeling about what Burlington is like. You know, as we say, there's a very strong commercial sector and shopping sector and a residential sector. And the art sector of Burlington has been a little bit overlooked. And this would be one way of really making a strong statement. Let's see our next visual. Basically, as we said, it's known too much as the mall, and that's the view of the mall from the highway. The sculpture park would change the perception of Burlington. Let's go to the next visual. And any minute now. I think
If we could go to the next slide.
Okay.
These are all open questions. Where would the sculpture park be placed? Well, one thought is the center of town because the land could stay open just as it is. Essentially, I look at it as putting jewelry on the town or adding harmony to a melody that's already there. It wouldn't really change it in a basic way. It would just make it even better. There's the Common. There's Simon's Park across the street from the Common. A lot of that is ball fields, but if you drive down 3A, you'll see there's a lot of open space that is used sometimes by the Frisbee people, but by no means all of the space and by no means all of the time. And then the third image on the bottom shows what I call the town forest, that beautiful grove of trees that leads from Simon's Park playing fields all the way down to the real commercial center of town. Now, across the street from that is the Building 19 location, which is about to be done over. One possibility would be, and this is all blue sky right now, what if there were sculptures along that part so that the new housing and restaurant at the Building 19 location would look across on that? Would it not make people want to walk more because there'd be something that you could see? I think sculptures in the woods actually could be fun to look at. It could make it like a little fairyland in there, and no trees would have to be cut down.
Thank you.
And that's a similar idea to Garden in the Woods.
Yes.
Out in Framingham. I don't know if any of you guys have been there, but it's a nice little walk. I haven't been there for a long time, but I took my kids and they had an artist, and all of his sculptures were gigantic bugs, dragonflies, and it was a really cool thing. You'd walk through the paths, come to an open spot, and there'd be like a giant sculpture there. It was really, really cool.
Now, one of the local sculpture parks is the Cordova, which is a marvelous place. Although it does cost money to get in, and I don't think that we're thinking of anything quite on that scale. And they have probably nationally known sculptors there. Now, one of the things that we looked at was, are there municipally owned and run sculpture parks? And the answer is yes, there are. There's a very prominent one in Skokie, Illinois, and I spoke to the director of that park, and she was very helpful. She said they rotate everything through. There's very few permanent things, and that way it stays fresh. And they put out on the website, sculptors can go in and they can apply. They can say, this is what my work looks like, and if they win, they get a $2,500 stipend, and they put their sculpture in a truck and they drive it up to Skokie and it gets installed. They get to put that on their portfolio, and the town gets a sculpture for a year or two. And that seemed like a pretty interesting model. So that would be one way to look at things. We also, of course, would involve the high school. as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned before that Bill Duffy, this nationally known sculptor, graduated from Burlington High.
Yeah.
So there
Duffy,
is
I think you said his name was.
Bill Duffy.
Yeah.
Also spoke to him, and he's very excited about the idea. He doesn't live around here anymore, but he knows, and he knows art-related people in town, and he knows that there's an interest in art in Burlington that just hasn't really come to the surface yet.
I just the hill
Yes.
is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is the crux of the problem. And you've got 19 and a half dead center.
Yes.
It's probably an unreasonable kind of thing, but I think it should be explored. Can you work out anything with 19? They are the thing that is going to join the bottom
To this, right.
with the top. You mentioned across the street. I'm just wondering if they might consider, and I know they have all kinds of problems with egress there, but there may be some way. They've got those two shops that are their buildings. Anything there would join. I can remember, and I'm the oldest one here, if you haven't noticed.
No comment.
I wasn't sure.
I've been here for a long time, and I can remember when they had a hamburger with, this building that's for sale?
Yep.
The one that we're talking about? They had, and I can't think of the name of it, it begins with a K. It's a chain. They had a hamburger stand there for quite a few years, and it used to attract, and I don't know why, but
I wouldn't mind if they put a good hamburger joint in the new building.
no.
I like a good burger.
No, we're
Yeah, 'cause
talking
they
art
don't
here.
put in a restaurant,
Adam.
so I don't
Turkey
know.
burger or anything.
At any rate, I think the key is to find something, and maybe it is the park. So, in my mind, I'm not ruling out the common, but I would prefer to see something that joins the top, because that is the key to Burlington, in my estimation, insofar as the center is concerned. You've got to bring something that will join the top and the bottom. The top is wonderful. The bottom is all business. It's not really. And yet, if you can create an interesting way to get people to walk down and shop and walk up and relax, I think that would be, we would be better than Lexington.
I mean, my idea, John's got an idea of a sculpture park, but it's always something fluid that we're talking about.
Right.
My idea is more, I enjoy the idea of people walking. I'm also a mom, I think of safety. So I think of the other side, which is the Building 19 side.
Right.
My idea of the sculptures, and it wouldn't really be a park, but it'd be more like a walking tour.
Okay.
You have all the municipal buildings. I sort of like the idea of maybe you could get a sculpture related to the fire department or something, you think of something with
so you're
reading.
talking about dispersed.
That's my idea. It's a little bit
Walking.
different, but we
Okay.
don't know
Right.
where we're going with this. I mean, it could certainly be built up in parks, when you walk and stuff. But I thought that might be a little nice thing on that side, because you've got all those municipal buildings, you've got that side of the common.
Yeah.
You could do stuff. And I think the planning board, it's certainly something I work with Paul Raymond on recreation too. They sort of can give developers a little bit of hints that people would like to see. I think if they could put some sculpture or just different design or art. I mean, sculptures, and that's another thing. I was talking to Ernie Zabolotny. When we talk about sculptures, we're showing you slides of bronzes and interactive things with kids, but you can also do like landscaping things, like if you think of topiaries and like Disney and
Right.
Epcot, there's different kinds of art and sculpture you can
Yeah.
bring in.
Right.
So, and we've talked in our little meetings with the group of us, we'd also like to see that, they're doing, New England Executive Park is now the district. Like, wouldn't it be nice, if the people over there could walk around during their lunch hours, different buildings have different things, or like if they have if you could see in their lobby and they have different art in there, that would be nice too. So we've got some different ideas going.
Have you talked to either of you, or has anyone talked to the Duffy Company with regard to what they're going to do dead center in their complex? My understanding is it's business, apartments or whatever.
In a restaurant.
And businesses at the bottom, but the center, something like Wayside. You know, where they have a
That's
nice
what
town.
it looked like on the
Where,
planning board,
where,
yeah.
for example, a couple getting married would consider going there to have their pictures taken, or you would sit
Right.
there and go and have an ice cream. You know, it could be, if they understand, could be very, very inviting for them to do something, to spend a reasonable amount, putting in a waterfall there.
Water
Putting in,
element,
or
sure.
running water of some kind.
Hardscape.
Extremely attractive. In the summertime, at this time of the year, people would go there and sit there and really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you had something across the street,
Yeah, I know that that Mr. Duffy's, I think most of his presentations have been to the Route 3A committee, which does have some influence about what can happen, and of course the planning department. So I think he's dealing with enough town agencies at this point that he doesn't maybe necessarily need to hear from us.
We're not official in any
Well,
capacity.
his dance card's pretty full.
You
The
know.
fact that we don't exist
I
anyway,
have to
but
tell you, we're going to have Kevin Duffy on the program.
okay.
He's agreed to come on
Bring us
in a
back.
few weeks, and so
Well, I
we can-
think, as I
Oh.
said, everybody knows that what replaces Building 19 is very, very important to what
Right.
happens. And I think he's been pretty good about listening to people's feedback.
this
He's
Kevin?
changed his plans more than once.
is this Kevin? Do you know?
I only know him as Mr. Duffy.
I'm
Because
not- I
there's
haven't-
3 of them.
Yeah.
My
Sure.
understanding is there are 3 brothers.
But I think that this project, however it plays out, could only be good for them, because it would as a matter of fact, I think it's good for pretty much everybody. I think the thing to me about the center of town is that practically nobody lives there. So if there were a small number of people parking it around the common or at Simon's Park and going to look at them, it isn't going to disrupt anybody. I think it's a positive for somebody opening a new business. I think it's a positive for the
Oh,
children of
absolutely.
Burlington.
Moving
Uh,
to Burlington.
One of the questions that I want to ask the town over time is, A, do you like the idea? Do you like it enough to throw $10,000 a year at it, or 20? Or do you only like it if it doesn't cost the town a nickel? I'm sure, and I think that's an important question to ask. It could be funded, potentially through the business community in other ways. I imagine that it would probably be a little bit of town money. Well, just to give you an idea, Skokie spends $10,000 a year on those 4 stipends. We're going to spend $15,000 on the 4th of July parade, which I voted for. I think it's great. But for 2/3 of that money, you could have something that actually changes the perception of the town much more than the 4th of July
And
parade.
lasts for 2
Exactly.
years.
It lasts
Yeah.
for, well,
18
basically,
months, 2 years, yeah.
forever. So, but I think it's a positive, and I think that we'll run into some grumblers, because I expect that. There's a lot of questions. Who decides what goes in there?
Yeah, who's the art commission?
Well, I think that there will be.
Is it you and Christine?
No.
Although I like your ideas.
There would be
In
a
fairness,
committee
okay.
formed, and I don't even know at this point whether it's part of town government or independent or in partnership with town government. Might even want to have a talk with our town lawyer to figure some of these things out.
Giorgio?
There's a lot of questions. I wanted to mention, by the way, that there are different models. Now, there's a town in, I think it's Sheridan, Wyoming, that is a sculpture town. And they don't have it in a park. The entire city is a sculpture city. It's a Western theme. All the sculptures are about cowboys and cows, and
Not surprisingly.
not surprisingly.
No.
And so it has taken this town and made it a real attraction, because as you walk, everywhere you walk, you see sculptures. That's another approach. As Christine said, why wouldn't the developers working down on Mall Road and other places want to have sculpture down there to encourage walking? Up at 3rd Ave now, where there's lots of nice things, why not, But I keep coming back to the common, because I keep coming back to the idea that
That's our center.
that's our center, and that's the thing that would cause people to say, oh, Burlington, that's the cool town with the sculpture, as opposed to Burlington, that's the town with the mall. And I think that if it spreads out into other communities or areas or businesses, that's great. But I keep coming back to the town center being the part.
I
That
think
should be
you're
there.
going to have to fight the perception initially of Burlington, the mall, and Leahy, and Burlington, the center where I don't mind going and I don't know what shops, or we have to wait and see what they. But Burlington Center is, and it's sort of a balance between the two. People who go to the mall or go to the hospital for their particular reasons, but they're going to come to the center. So I think we can build something that is as important. Well, you.
Community.
We need people.
This is a community endeavor.
Us as
Exactly.
Burlington residents, because people have interest in these things.
There
Wait,
are
can I ask?
Yes, sure.
Can I ask?
anything.
Have you? You seem to be talking about pieces, sculpture. Is this a source that you've contacted already? That you?
No.
Where do these things come from?
Well, as I said, I'm sort of thinking about the Skokie, Illinois model, where I assume that they spent some time putting out the word to. There's a National Sculpture Association and there's a Mass Sculptors Association, or maybe New England based, and then there's the art schools. So I think what we would do is if we went ahead with this, we would contact every imaginable art and sculpture association and say, hey, Burlington is open for business, and if we can fund, just as a number to throw out, for a year. Again, we're not talking about the sculptors who do the stuff that you see at the major museums that are $100,000 a pop.
Right.
That's not going to happen. But there's an army of people working in their basements and backyards who love to work in wood and steel and plastic, and they want people to see their work. And we would give them the opportunity and a little bit of money, whether that money comes from the town and or from the business community. You have to figure that in Burlington, with the corporate presence that we have, I know pretty much for a fact that we can raise $10,000 a year. But I'd rather see a chunk of it come from the town, because I want the town, because that would say the town cares about it. It's not something the business community is doing, it's something the town is doing.
Exactly.
And that $10,000 or whatever it is that the town could give, I think would be a very important vote of confidence, maybe more so than even the money.
We almost have a quorum here in this.
That's right.
Of
That's
town
right.
meeting members, well,
All in favor?
I'm a little math challenged, but not quite.
So,
It's something too,
yeah.
trying to get these sculptors in. If we ran an annual contest, who's going to be next kind of thing. I mean, to get that on somebody's resume is pretty
Yes.
impressive. I was the
Sure.
first sculptor selected for the Burlington Sculpture
Yes.
Park,
Right.
I think that's a win for them just to get out there and,
Right.
get the publicity behind them and stuff like that. And that's something, we talked about briefly too, run it as a contest, and the
Right.
way to rotate and have a big unveiling.
Yep.
And I mean,
if
it's
there
a
is
nice
3
way to
or
do
4
it.
a year, one of them is a student sculpture. Huge stepping stone.
Well, yes, and all the art schools in the area too.
Well, art
Even
schools in the area
Burlington
and
High.
Burlington High School.
Right, and
we have definitely
Shawshene,
spoken
okay.
to the art department at Burlington High, and of
Right.
course they love the idea. It's right up the street from where they are.
Right.
I would imagine that as little as Burlington is known for its visual arts, I would guess that we probably, I don't know this, I'm just guessing that we have a decent arts program, because I know we have a decent drama program, and I would
Right.
think if we
Yes.
invest in that area, they probably fund the other areas of the arts
I mean,
as well.
the Burlington Art Department, I mean, just from seeing the kids' artwork, I mean, you have Globe, the Boston Globe, like, there's always
Yeah, there's a
award
winner.
winners, silver and gold key.
Okay.
I know Bob Tice has Burlington High students' artwork displayed at MITRE in the libraries and stuff there. So, I mean, I see a lot of their visual stuff. I know they've got a big, like they did a big fashion design thing recently. But
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that there's kids that are interested in different mixed media and sculpting and stuff, and just to give them that platform too. I mean, I see what their artwork is like in the school committee room where we have our meetings, and the kids are so talented. And
Puts
I
them
know
on the front page.
that's just like a glimpse. I'm
Yeah.
not in it every day, but I know they've got more talent that we just haven't seen yet either.
If I can, you mentioned garden. Sunday's paper never gave it a thought with regard to, but and I can't remember the name of it. It's in New Hampshire. It's a community. They feature gardens, and they had an article in the Sunday Globe Arts section that you can call to send you a brochure, because what they do is they have all different kinds of things, specifically gardens, but also other things. Now, I imagine sculptures of one kind or another, water, they use a little bit of everything, but they actually invite people up there to spend the day and to, to have dinner. I can't even remember the name of the town. It's in New Hampshire. I have it at home. If I find it, I will send you an email to tell you.
We haven't recycled yet, so I'll look it up out of our paper too.
By the way, one thing I want to mention is that there's a huge range to what public art can be. But one of the lovely examples is the ducklings in the Boston Public Garden.
Yeah.
And I mentioned I do websites. I did the website for Nancy Shern, the sculptor who did that,
Right.
and spent a bunch of time hearing about how that thing came about. And she tells a story that she got permission from the author of Make Way for Ducklings to do this sculpture, and worked for years to put that sculpture in the public garden. People think it's in the common. It's in the public garden. Much more complicated than the politics I think that we're going to deal with. When the author came to see the sculpture that she had mocked up, she didn't build it in bronze right away. She mocked it up, and there it was, and there was Mama Duck. And he said, "Why is it so large? I mean, Mama's Duck's this big. You built it this big." He was staring at it, at which point a little kid walked up and climbed on the sculpture. He
And
said,
that's the point.
he said, "Oh, I get it."
Aha.
So
Okay.
sculpture can be a very wide range of things. We have the ducklings that people love. We have the bronze downtown of Red Auerbach sitting there smoking
Yeah.
a cigar. People
Yeah.
love to have their picture taken next to Red.
Bobby Orr.
Bobby Orr.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. North Station.
There's a sculpture,
Number 4.
if you call it that, or maybe it's an installation piece over at the De Cordova, which is wonderful on a number of levels. It's a block of concrete, and out of it are sticking. Actually, you know what? We have a visual of it. If you can cycle through a couple more, I can point this out. On the very bottom right there, you see that concrete bed, and sticking out of it are big 3-inch or so aluminum tubes of
Okay.
different lengths. And on the right, there's a little bucket, and people put sticks that they pick up off the ground. And you're supposed to pick up the sticks and walk down the row and clank it against the aluminum and make your own music. And
Oh,
it
kids must
is-
love that.
kids-
I mean,
well,
I love it.
most sculpture is don't touch, don't climb on it,
Right.
don't touch it.
Don't breathe
And
on it.
there we have something that is very simple, almost indestructible. I mean, you can pound on it as hard as you want, and those aluminum posts are not going anywhere. That's the kind of thing. I actually did email back and forth. This is done by Paul Matisse, who's the grandson
where
of
is this
Matisse.
located?
This is
Really?
at the De Cordova Museum
Okay.
in
Lincoln.
Lincoln. Very much worth going to see. And they have a wide range of sculpture, some of which I think we would say, probably not something we want, others that we would. In this group of images, look at the top left, that pretty bright red horse made out of probably steel, fairly indestructible. There's a curious one below it that's just fun shapes. And then we have sculptures like the ducklings that people can climb on. There's a huge range, and I'd love to see in some areas interactive things that kids could play on. There's actually no absolute hard line between what is actually a children's playground and the sculpture.
Right.
There's a nationally known sculptor that does slides and seesaws that are actually probably something we couldn't afford, but they make the point that there's quite a range there. Let me see. You know what? We have a couple more visuals. Why don't we just cover them?
Okay,
And see?
Please.
I don't
By all
remember.
means.
Okay. So what would it cost? Our thinking is that the town is not going to purchase the art. Artists would apply to have their works shown with a small stipend. And I want to know over time from the town, do you like the idea at all? Do you like it if it costs nothing? Do you like it if it costs $10,000 a year? We had a thing that happened at town meeting, not this meeting, but the previous one, where $50,000 was set aside for sidewalks. And people got up and said, no, we want more sidewalks. And they insisted on making it $100,000. And some people objected, said, we can't run the town this way. We can't have people doing this. But it was a good example of town meeting expressing what they cared about. We go to town meeting and people said, we really love this idea, but we want to spend nothing. Well, that's one message. We really love this idea. It's worth 10 grand a year. That's another message. We really love it. Here's 20. That's another message. And I really want to hear from the citizens and then eventually from town meeting members, how much do you like it? Do you like it not at all? Do you like it for 0 or for 10 or for 20 or for what?
Makes sense.
I think
So-
you could make a very strong case for 10,000, 15,000 a year. I mean, we spend that on the fireworks on
That's what we're
Celebrate
saying.
Burlington.
Fireworks,
It's over,
right.
done one night.
Celebrate Burlington is sponsored by Herb Chambers.
Yeah,
Give
they
them a shout
Are
out.
they
Herb
paying for
Herb
fireworks?
Chambers.
Herb
This one?
Chambers does Celebrate Burlington
Okay.
for
Well,
4th of
okay.
July.
We
That
bought
was
my
something
wife's
else.
car there.
I
I want to make sure we
Yeah,
get
I've got a
that one
Honda
right.
too.
Oh, now we have a Mercedes dealership, and I happen to know the owner, so maybe we can.
There is
Couple years,
another
maybe we'll be
aspect.
buying a car from there, but it'll be a while.
I think there's another argument can be made why it's worth spending the money on. Like I said, I think it could be raised from the business community exclusively, but I'd much rather see a big chunk come from the town because it means the town really wants it.
Right.
Now, and I say when we say it, we don't even have an
Know what
absolute
that is
definition
just
of
yet.
what it is, but something with sculpture in Burlington that will change people's perception. Now, I think I just completely lost
So-
the train of thought there. Just
Let me help you pull it into the
I
station.
was driving
Just to
down the street
recap-
and got distracted by a sculpture. What were you saying?
Just to recap, so you wanted to basically June, July, and August. I don't want to, I'm misconstruing it probably, but
Yes.
to call it a listening tour.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
John and Christine, would you both be
I think so.
organizing this? And
Right.
so is the point to have it maybe some like large venue like Grandview, or you're not quite sure?
The only reason I wouldn't choose Grandview in the barn
Okay.
is because maybe we wouldn't get enough people. I would hope that
Then
we
it'll
would.
look
Well, you got 3
It'll
right
look
here.
sad if
All
it's,
right.
5 of
Yes.
us
Talk to our
in the
camera
barn.
people. That's fine.
Yeah,
Director
I
six?
think we would probably start with a medium-sized room, and maybe that would be the library, or
Okay.
the rec
Rec
department has
room.
spaces.
Okay.
We'll work this out. No, but I finally remember the point I was trying to make before I drove off the road from the sculptures. One of the things that we hear a lot in the planning, master plan steering committee is that, and in town meeting, is that with these corporations, the high-tech programming companies and other high-tech companies, is they have to decide where to put their new buildings and their locations. And a lot of times it comes down to Cambridge or Somerville or out here. And to some extent, we're at a disadvantage. Now, we're at a disadvantage in terms of public transportation because we don't have a T, and we never will in any foreseeable future. It's hard to imagine rapid transit coming
Having
to
enough
Burlington.
trouble getting into Somerville, so
Right.
You got that right,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, our metro.
So that's a problem. And the other thing that Somerville and Cambridge have is a very, very active art scene. There are cafes and there are
Universities.
galleries. There's all that kind of stuff. And I think that when a company says, let's put the headquarters in Somerville because all of the hip young people will want to go there, and they say, Burlington, they're not going to want to go to Burlington. Well, I think this is a way of starting to change the perception of what Burlington is. So not only does it have benefits for the townspeople and the kids who live here and can delight on these sculptures, I actually think it can have significant economic benefits for the town in the long run to change the perception. I've often said, Burlington's future, we have a big solid residential base that's not going to change very much. We have the Mall Road and Middlesex Turnpike corporate area, not going to change except to grow. The thing that we don't have is that artistic strand. It's not very strong in
I
town.
agree.
I think the pieces are there, and I think this is one way to help it kind of blossom a little bit. We've heard about other projects. I mean, there are things. I mean, we know that the Burlington Players won the best theater company in the country award a few
wonderful.
years ago. And there's a dance school and there's a music school. So I think pieces are there. But I think something like this would help crystallized that this is really kind of a cool town. Okay, we're not Somerville. Maybe we don't have the Somerville Theater. But another discussion that has risen up in the Master Plan Steering Committee is, well, why couldn't we have a Center for the Arts like TCAN down in Natick, where they have nationally known acts in rock and country and classical and everything? That could happen. Could we have artist lofts in town? Again, art is never going to be the primary economic force in this town, but it could be a tremendous ally to everything else that's going on. Kids in school, and bringing in people who say, yeah, I'll move to Burlington.
I see
Burlington's
that
a
up on the
cool
North
town.
Shore. On a related to what you said, I see a lot of advertisements for the Cabot Theater now.
Right.
And they're
Right.
getting national acts and some people with pedigree coming
Right.
in there to tour. And I also noticed that there's an auditorium now in Lexington Center that is getting. They had a couple of blues shows there, I noticed. And
Right. Right.
so, like you're saying, that there is room to branch out. And
I'm kind of surprised that you haven't come across Vermont, because they still have centers in Vermont in terms of sculpting. They have, I believe Rutland is one of the primary areas where their sculptors congregate and put a lot of things out, not for Rutland, but to be sold or to be put on display. I have no idea how they do it, but I've always been a believer in that state Vermont is very much into.
Well, I think Vermont has towns, possibly Rutland, I don't know, or I know of a friend who has an art gallery in Beacon, New York. Now, Beacon, New York was an incredibly depressed community, really a dying town, and they moved a major gallery from New York City into Beacon, New York, and now that place has, I can tell you that the Main Street of Beacon has, I would say, 10 times more galleries and cafes than we have, except that we don't have any galleries and really don't hardly have any cafes. So Beacon is a town possibly like some of the Vermont towns or North Adams, where the Renaissance is entirely based on art. That's not Burlington. My problem is that I think that there's too much of a vacuum in that area, that I don't by no means see our future as based on art. That's what you do in a town that's dying, and your only hope is to bring artists into the cheap housing. That's not us. But I think that that doesn't mean that, as I've said, that art can be another major strand of public life in this town.
well, what about on you're thinking grand with the sculpture park? But
Yes.
I think a simple thing that we can incorporate, I know that there's the farmer's market that is currently at the senior center that's very popular, and I guess they want to expand it down to the common.
issue.
Right.
I mean, what if I think it might be less heavy lifting in the long run and an easier sell in the short run to the community, to maybe once a month during the nice summer seasons, the first Saturday of every month, set up tents and shops for where people can somehow make a claim to the area.
I nominate him to start the Burlington Art Association.
go,
I
Adam.
think that's right. That's the kind of thing that's needed.
Yeah.
But we felt that this was an idea that would spark so many other things that it was a kind of it would solve a lot of problems for the town, not financial problems, and
Aesthetic
but
problems.
but I think imaging problems. Burlington, that's a town with a mall. To be replaced by Burlington, hey, that's the cool town that has the sculptures. We go up there all the time, and then we have lunch at that new place where Building 19 used to be, and then we go shopping here. We might even stop at the mall.
Has anyone mentioned water fountains?
Water elements are huge.
I-
and they draw
I-
children.
I-
They're
Yeah.
evocative.
Flowing water, one way or another, is just, I think, is.
Well, I know we have a small fountain on the common
Yeah,
now.
it's a small one, and I'm
Problem
not
with
sure
that
that
is
it
no
works
over
all the
winters,
time.
But,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about something that is permanent,
Is there flowing
that
water?
would be in addition to whatever else we do, as another walking point.
I think there's probably a sculptor out there who has interactive, possibly an interactive, imagine a fountain that's controlled by sensors, so when people walk up to it, it does things.
There is
You'd
one
have to run
already.
antifreeze in it in the winter. I think one of the issues is that we don't initially want to imagine anything that's going to cost a lot of money to build or upkeep. Now, if you have running water, you're going to have some issues with that. And I think I'd want to see some momentum building that everybody says, yeah, let's do more before we invoke anything that's going to be any kind of a significant burden on the rec department's budget.
Yeah.
I mean, have a couple guys go in
Water
with
and
This
sewer,
will come in
there's
front
a
of town meeting,
Yes.
and I know we
Right.
get
Right.
concerned
And
about all the
we
money
do
That's one
we
of the
spend, so-
concerns that we brought up when I was talking to Brendan, our director. He's like, well, what are we going to have to do to maintain it? But I mean, outdoor sculptures are meant to be in the outdoor. So,
Right.
I mean, pretty much, at least in our ideas, we think, you have a cement pad, it gets installed, and we talked about how do you avoid vandalism, how do you, that kind of
Okay.
thing. So, that's something we'd need to talk to town council, but you would have an agreement that, the town is not going to be responsible
Right.
for vandalism and that kind of thing. And that's stuff we haven't really explored a lot, but
And I think you try to get sculptures that are not,
that are durable.
that are pretty durable, that the worst the kids are going to do is spray paint them and then you repaint them.
Don't give 'em ideas.
Don't give them ideas. Well,
Well,
But if they're in a nice visible spot,
Yes.
it's not going to
if
be.
there's enough lights
Yeah.
in the
well,
town
that's a
common
big
area.
vote in favor of putting them right in front of police and fire and town hall because those, you'd have to.
Constant
be able to keep an
people
eye on
walking
them.
in and out.
But
Yeah, a lot of eyes.
But but I think those things can be dealt with. Now, here's something that we were talking about before we went on the air: is that while most sculpture parks are museums or art colleges, like DeCordova Art Museum has this amazing sculpture park, but there are towns. I mentioned Skokie, Illinois, but here's some small towns. Montrose, South Dakota, is a town full of sculptures. Hamilton, New Jersey. I doubt it's much bigger than we are, maybe smaller. They've got a municipal sculpture park. Liberty Hill, Texas. So these are not, hippy-dippy little towns. These are mainstream American towns. So I think for us to think about this, and actually I've got a list here of many of the towns, Frankfort, Kentucky, and
That's a big town.
yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, the Chauvin Sculpture Garden in Chauvin, Louisiana, there's quite a few out there. Big cities, small towns. Indianapolis, I think the center of town is a sculpture park. But we don't have to work on that level. They would be expected to have the $100,000 big name national sculptors. And Skokie has shown that you can have really cool stuff, fun stuff. And we would form a committee, and we would put out a very clear picture of what we want. We want stuff that is colorful. We want stuff that is not controversial. We want stuff that's not political. There's a very important place in the world for edgy and difficult and political art, but that place is not the center of any town. That should be in a private collection somewhere or an art museum collection somewhere. We would want to have things that are much more uplifting, that are not controversial, and they're fun.
I think of nature. I think of Burlington's past as a farming community. Think of animals, flora, fauna.
Right.
And then if you go up in Lower Village, Kennebunk, there's an art gallery there, and it hacks, I'll call them sculptures, but it's art and it moves. So when the wind blows, it almost gives you like a 3D optical illusion effect. Like that kind of stuff is really fun too.
Or if it has a noise as the wind goes
Yeah.
through it, that's
Right.
evocative because it embraces all your different senses and that draws you forth.
Yeah, and
Just
I
like,
think stuff
like a
like
harp
that
is
is nice.
evocative and it draws you forth.
We've talked about it and I've joked. I'm like, I don't want to see a nude up on the common and have 3A and Bedford Street traffic, people being like, oh my gosh, what is that?
What
It
does
definitely
it-
has to be tasteful.
What does it take to start an arts council?
No idea. I would imagine.
I mean,
Takes a man
if
with
we,
an
if we,
idea.
people.
if we
Yeah,
declared
exactly.
tonight we are the Burlington Arts Council,
Oh boy.
what do we do to become official besides telling the public?
Well,
and
Viewers.
Asking for donations.
I think what you do
I
is
think you have to incorporate
that's
as
the
a
last
non-
thing you
you,
want to do.
Not
you incorporate
straight
as a nonprofit and spend that very difficult year getting your 501c3 nonprofit status.
Okay.
But I think it needs to happen
Establish
in
a
this
home
town.
address and
Right. It needs to happen, and you need a board of directors, and you need a director, and all that. And presumably, to start with, nobody gets paid.
yeah.
Then you
You
raise
definitely
the
need some
issue of
passionate people that are
Right.
willing to step up and do the groundwork. You know.
There's so much.
Yes, we
So
talked
much
about
to
whether we could fill an
explore,
hour, and
really.
We could fill
probably,
two.
I don't know if anybody could
They're gonna
stand to
get
watch it, but we could go for another hour.
I get that sense.
But that's the
I-
thing. We keep coming up with more ideas, and
I know.
something's
Yeah.
leading to
Just
something.
brainstorming sitting
and
here.
So I really hope when we people look for the notices for these public meetings and come to the meetings, bring your ideas, bring your enthusiasm, bring your questions, bring your issues. I have a page in this. Oh, I should point out that I think the last slide up there, or we have one more graphic.
I think that was.
There it is.
Okay.
We put together a quick and dirty website, www.artforburlington.org, and there's a version of this booklet here, and you can go and learn more right there.
Thanks for coming on with such a good presentation, and I think you really made your point to the people at home, and
Yeah, I mean,
hopefully
for
we
having
can
us.
Come to the
at least
meetings,
spark
come to
some
the meetings.
discussion about
How
this.
much time do
June,
we have?
July,
We
and
got
August.
a little bit less than 2 minutes, but
Oh, my
Congratulations
God,
on
we-
those awards.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
that
very
just
much.
flew by.
I think for a good
I-
sculpture idea, I think we could blow up one of these awards and make it bigger and put that as part of the.
Well, they always
Absolutely.
promised Paul
I-
Raymond a statue to scare away the geese at Miter. I don't know. That's going to be one
There
of
are a
the
couple of
We'll have
ideas
Paul
already.
Pose
Paul
in
knows
appropriate
about
attire.
it. It's not a surprise.
I have
Fair enough.
another idea. I think you should come back and continue this. Not now.
Well, we
Maybe
give-
after
we
the
give updates.
Yeah.
After your
sessions,
listening
yeah.
tour.
We'll
After
give
the
updates.
listening
Keep the
and-
ball
Or
rolling.
maybe after town
September.
meeting. If town meeting says absolutely not, nobody loves it, then we'll say, well, see you later, and move out of
Maybe
town.
before
No,
town
no,
meeting.
no,
when
you're
you
not
got a
moving
little
out
bit
of town. You're just going to have to let it marinate a little bit.
Yeah, but we hope, hopefully maybe
Idea.
somebody in the business sector will see this and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
push there, whoever.
No, I do
Get some
think
stuff
that we
going.
should be working with the Building 19 folks, because I think there's some kind of a natural marriage there.
I agree.
Right, and then it flows
They're the
to town
connectors,
common.
Yeah.
top and bottom.
But there's so many possibilities here that we have to make
When-
something happen, something good happen.
Yeah.
Would you be interested, either of you, coming on the show when he is here? Just a
We-
thought.
we
I
filled
don't.
actually, I don't want to answer for you, but we filled an hour with you guys, so I'm sure
it
we
would
could
be,
fill an hour
Oh,
with.
absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
Building
we
19.
really don't have any official
Yeah.
capacity yet, so
Yeah,
I don't know if
no,
we're the best
fair
reps
enough.
for that.
Joan, you take
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to thank both of our guests, Christine Brown and also Jon Sachs, for coming on the show. Certainly, we'd like to have you back in September or October.
Love to come back.
Definitely after town meeting has finished, but certainly even after your listening tour, it might be beneficial.
Thank you for
And
having
if we
us.
could have Mr. Duffy at the same time, it would be a beautiful melding of circumstances. Our next show is going to be on June 7th. We're going to have Kelly Lehman from the Record Department. She's also in charge of programming it for Celebrate Burlington, which is August 6th. Thanks very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good job. Good show.
That flew
stuff.
by.
Very
Stuff,
interesting.
yes, it did fly by.
We've only
gotta get your name.
barely touched the surface.